what is the, okay, so what is the dictionary definition of decadence? I suspect it's not what we all think it is. It's probably, decadence, I think, is just a love of excess, isn't it, really? Modern decadence, I think, well, I think the trouble is that modern decadence is just self-indulgence, basically. Versace. There is the ability for all of us now to completely gorge on whatever we want, either sexually, societally, or
watching box
sets, eating pizza constantly, and Ben and Jerry's. I mean, you know, people seem to need more and more a proper coping mechanism to deal with life, which I think is entirely understandable. Nobody can be blamed for it. It's just what. But yeah, I mean, Grace Jones famously pretty much bankrupted herself. I'm pretty sure Harry Styles is paying for his suits from Charles. I hope so. But whether they're paying full retail doesn't matter. Yeah. But he's for and supported, and obviously she. And I guess if we're all gonna be like that, then I think if we're all needing these kind of props, and it's great to actually. At least if you're decadent, you're celebratory of it rather than just being a victim of it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm up for that. You know, we're very different as people, Kira and I. You know, I'm an Aries and you're a Taurian, aren't you? And well, no, but we're no. I'm just saying that I'm just saying how fundamentally different as people we are.
I don't even remember my birthday.
Yeah, yeah. No, but
I think these are really, really good points.
And I think the differences between us is what's kept us together. Yeah. And especially when you're gay, you have always. I mean, it's the same. I like to think it's much more the same for heterosexuals now, because of Tinder and all that, so you can hook up and do the stuff that gay guys did forever. You know, it's available to everyone now. It's just a choice whether you want to do that or not. Yeah. You know. And I have found myself worryingly, as you get older, you actually care less, which is really one of the most fantastic things about getting older. And it is true, you do. You actually just think, fuck it, you know what I mean? And who are these upstarts and how dare they? And, you know, why should they, you know? And I think that... It was. So it came via whoever. Yes, I'm telling you, Johnny got on the phone, but I'm sure he instigated it, you know. But it's just interesting that that's what could happen. Back then, pop stars did buy their stuff. Literally, Catherine Hamlet would do some fancy leather jackets, and I'd go, well, yeah, they're kind of interesting, but it's still not as good as what you see coming out of Italy or Versace. Yeah. Because back then, Versace, there was no Baroque shit. There was none of that horrible... vulgar, you know. And I just had to say to her, look, sorry, because we were making stuff for her. This is when she was big, you know. But anyway, we had a lucky break in as much as I managed to get way into stock stuff that we were making. We were making these funny leather jackets with metal breastplates that we cast ourselves out of fiberglass attached to them. I managed to get to stock those and stock some corsets we saw the buyer. And we were making this stuff at weekends. And I was ended up in the odd position of we had our own window in. But anyway, so yeah, it was a bit of a different world. And of course, the thing about it back then was that if you didn't get the attention straight away, you didn't get it at all, because there was no social media or digital, and they bought one of the jackets, and so we ended up making all their stage stuff. And concurrent with that, and slightly miraculously, there was an amazing shop called A La Mode in Hans Crescent opposite Harrods, that stocked Galliano incredibly early, first people. Straight out of college, more or less. Yeah. And they stocked a wonderful designer called, I was thinking his name. Hang on.
Wonderful.
Kia, who's our favourite? Giorgio di Sant'Angelo, who nobody talks about, nobody's heard of anymore.
I've never heard.
He's a total genius.
Really?
Yeah, you just look him up. He's an absolute genius. He's an early AIDS victim, and they stocked him. and well, not an early age, but he was one of the first fashion AIDS victims, I believe. Yeah. And he was American and did some amazing bias cut sheath dresses that are just like jaw-dropping. And so it's a lovely, lovely shop. And somehow I managed to go in there and convince them to... They took a few pieces of us and said return. And then, like a day later, Sarah Jane Hoare, who was like really big at Vogue at the time, went in and saw the piece and said she was doing a shooting show. She said she'd like to use it, but could we make it gold? So we took the same piece back out of the shop and Kia gold leafed it, because whenever you see the metallics on our stuff, that's because we leaf the leather. And they shot it for Herb Ritts for Vogue. And we had 2 pages by Herb Ritts in Vogue.
Wow.
I mean, really early. There's the 2 of us, and you have to respect us as artisans or term designer makers. And you know, would you please?
Because it's a craft.
Yeah. Back in the day. Now, you know, I'm sure that they did help her out and stuff, but you know, it's a very interesting dynamic, and it's very interesting to see how this has morphed and changed in many ways, and also not changed as things have exploded, and you know.
Especially with social media, it's all about getting someone to sort of wear the garment.
Oh yeah. Watched it until about 18 months ago at all.
Really?
Oh, yeah, still not on Facebook. You know, no, I don't think we ever will be. No. We only do Instagram, and that's just we don't. Obviously we it's been quite a strange thing for us to do, having never touched anything or even had a Twitter account or anything. You know, so but anyway, and I realised I knew the name because I'd walked past his studio, which is at the Arches over there, loads of times. And we go on an afternoon walk every day. We go under the arches over that way towards the park, and he's got I'm pretty sure it's his studio over there. Yeah. And then of course I realised he was the one that the Queen had sat and seen the show by, and then of course I saw the thing of Clooney's wife wearing it in the Met Gala, and of course, and then there's sort of like those things add such credibility, you know, despite the fact that I just looked at it and thought, well, you know, I remember Lee Barry doing that fabric over the head first, and I remember Gautier's lovely version of it. Now you're doing it again. You know what I mean? So I mean, you know, I think the thing is, when you've been around as long as we have, you know all the tricks, and I find it. We both feel it. We were very, very lucky in that when I graduated, there was still some little patches of slightly wet cement around the edges of a hard concrete floor that you could put little footprints in, whereas now they've almost completely, you know, all that's left is reinvention and recomposing of ideas on the body.
It's very nostalgic at the moment as well.
Yes, and I think the other thing that we can't believe is how much of a sort of dressing up box it is, which is really good. And that's what we are excited about, and that's why we're really happy to be doing stuff with new people again, because we do... It is very, very refreshing to feel that because of social media and because of the way it all works, this is a case in point. There was a store that we used to sell to in New York called Untitled, and they stopped, all sorts of people.
Galliano, Westwood, a lot of British.
They stopped all those names until they got so big they got their own stores in New York, or they had a big concession in a department store, whatever. So again, they were very early supporters of amazing, you know, iconic names back in the day, and they stuff was very sort of quite dress up body based. So they loved what we did, and we always sold fairly well through there. And again, thanks to Instagram, you know, I'd have thought they were long gone, but they're not. They're there. It's amazing. It's a lovely story actually, because they're a gay couple as well, and they're older than us, and they're absolutely been born again through Burning Man. You know, they are just like the store of Burning Man, and that's so fantastic.
Lots of craft. They always love craft.
Yeah, and they're still selling very much the same thing, and of course they've got the people now that do sort of what we used to do, because back then there was only us doing this. There was when I was a student, there was like a liar. A little, but I weren't that aware of him. He wasn't really that known. Mugler, yes. Claude Montana, big tick. They were the big European makers that did extraordinary catwalk pieces that were really crafted. The London stuff was all edgy and amazing, but quite disposable, and no one in London made pieces at all. It was all street clothing. I mean, it was literally really futuristic. And I actually went to Versace's atelier as a student in 1984 and met him. and I met a woman who was braddling apart chain mail to make dresses on a table on her own, and you know, and he did this laser rubber stuff, and it was very futuristic, you know. So they were quite exciting. They were the ones that we were looking at, and the thing, our remit was to try and bring some of that to the UK, and I think actually we did end up doing that because we were right on the vanguard of all that, you know, and that's why McQueen used us. And of course, they all came along and sort of almost gobbled us up and ran off with it to a degree. But that's the way it was. You know, we did one major show that was on the closed show and and we got good press on it. As Whitaker Malem in what year was that?
91, I think. 91, yeah.
Was it 90s even? Okay, so early 90s. It may have been a bit before that, I can't remember. But we so favoured out all our friends and we're so in debt that we just thought, actually, you know... So
well, we didn't sell any more clothes, that's what happened. Didn't sell any more just for doing a show. So,
no, we didn't, you're right. Yeah.
So, what is it you want to talk about?
Is it any good?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
it is.
I was lost there.
Okay, I'm just rambling away.
No,